In Deuteronomy chapter 20, beginning in verse 16, but of the cities of these people, which the Lord your God gives you as an inheritance, you shall let nothing that breathes remain alive, but you shall utterly destroy them, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, the Jebusite, just as the Lord your God has commanded. Verse 18, lest they teach you to do according to all their abominations, which they have done for their gods, and you sin against the Lord your God. We sometimes, as I was growing up, I would think, why did God destroy these Canaanites, these peoples of the Canaanites? And what did they do that was so bad? And as I've began to study and look into the practices in which they have done, I can more understand why God would not want his people to pick up their practices. But God is patient. He is a loving God. We know that. Some say the God of the Old Testament is not like the God of the New Testament, but God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And we know that because it said of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. So we see in Genesis 15 and verse 16, as God there speaks about the covenant and the promised land to Abraham, he says, in the fourth generation, they, the Israelites, shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full or complete. We see God is patient, God is loving, and we see that these people were not changing their ways and their practices. So we want to take some time here and look at who are the Canaanites and why would God want to destroy them. And it's interesting, you read about the Canaanites in the Old Testament, but you never read about them in the New Testament. And why is that? Well, they're called by a different name in the New Testament. So we will get into that as we examine some things here. Going back to Genesis chapter 10, and we see when Noah awoke after he had drank wine and he was uncovered, and his son Ham comes in and sees him uncovered and goes and tells his brothers. And verse 24, Genesis 10, says, so Noah awoke from his wine and knew that his younger son, what he had done to him. Then he said, cursed be Canaan, the son of Ham. Servant of servants shall he be to his brethren. And so there we see that the curse is upon Canaan from Noah because of Ham, his father's actions in that. So we see Canaan beget Sidon, and we know that is a city that is on the coast there, a northern part of Israel, up by Lebanon. And Heth, the Jebusite, the Amorite, the Girgasite, the Hivite, the Archeolite, and so on. And these make up the families of the Canaanites, and they were dispersed throughout, and they become dispersed throughout the Mediterranean. We know them as Canaanites in the Old Testament. The Greeks refer to them as Phoenicians, and they are called Phoenicians in the New Testament, written in Greek. And the word Phoenician has association with the color red in Greek. It's not known if they felt that the Canaanite people had a reddish colored skin, or if it was because of reddish colored clay that they used in making their pottery. But they were the merchants of the ancient world. The Phoenician, the Canaanites were the merchants of the Mediterranean all the way to Persia. And some of their cities we're familiar with are Tyre and Sidon, which are Lebanon in that area. Carthage is a city-state of the Phoenicians. Tarshish, in which Jonah was fleeing to. And we want to look at today an island off the coast of the tip of Sicily, off the western tip of Sicily. And there is a small secluded island that is protected. And it's pronounced Moyta in English, or Mozia in Italian, or Moiza as they pronounce it. And the Phoenicians, being in charge of the cedars of Lebanon, and that was theirs to to harvest. We see that they carried these all over the ancient world. They carried them to Egypt, they carried them to Rome, they carried them all over the ancient world. They carried them to Persia. They barged them together and hooked them to their ships and rowed them across the Mediterranean. They were used in building the temple that Solomon had built. The timber was supplied by Hiram, king of Tyre, a Canaanite king who was friends with David. And as we look at this island, and we're going to look at two places in particular, and it will help us understand what the Canaanites worshiped and some of their religion. We're going to focus now on the southern end of Moiza and some things that were discovered there. And this area is called the Kothan. It's on the southern tip of the island. And a Kothan is an inland harbor. And the reason it's named that is it was believed that it was an inland harbor, but they didn't see how it connected out to the sea. And more recently, Professor Lorenzo Negro, the Italian professor that was in charge of the archaeological research on the island, they dug down and discovered that this is actually an ancient pool, and it was used for sacred rituals, and we'll get into that in just a moment. So this particular area was a sacred area with a temple to Baal, a shrine to Astarte, his consort in their religion. He was the storm god of the day, and she was the queen of the heavens of night. And then there is a sacred pool, and they did find the torso of the image of Baal on the island. When Professor Lorenzo dug down, they found the foot on a pedestal on that very center there in the pond. And in the pond, then Baal faced out this direction, and then later an outer wall was built around that cut through the shrine, and it had an opening here on the north side. And we see Baal is looking towards the south. And then there was another image here that sat, and it was the Egyptian god Thoth, a baboon, and he was known for being the first one to see the sun rise in the morning. Now, this is all important to them, and if you notice, this is due south, but everything is sort of cocked 10 degrees. In researching this, they've discovered that the rising of Orion on the winter solstice is perfect alignment with the pool here. From what they have researched, they've discovered that the pool was used as a reflective pond so that they could map out the heavens, and they found a plate there that was hammered, and it looks, if you look at it, it just looks like it was hammered with dents all in it, but as they began to look, it was a map of the heavens with the stars and the astrological heavens there that they looked at, the zodiacs. Now, around this wall where they worshipped Baal and they mapped the heavens, they found human teeth evenly spaced all around this wall that's almost 129 yards in circumference. They were from adult humans. And they also found in one place on the wall the pelvis bone of a 9-year-old female girl. The Baal temple was a 4-room type structure, and other structures have been found in current day Syria, which was Canaanite, There have been found similar structures at Carthage. And the area here to Astarte, it must have had her image in this back area and where people would come in. When people would enter, it seems that they would leave these stones because black and white stones have been discovered near the entrance. They have been discovered in the areas of worship. And these represented Baal and Ashtoreth. Now, remember, Baal is called by different names in different cultures, and also Ashtoreth is called by different names in different cultures, and we will address that in the second half of this. The image that we have here in the box dates to 800 BC, and it is an amulet of Baal, and we see that he has his arm extended. And Baal was the storm god, and later I will show you a relief, and the original is at the Louvre in France, in Paris. And Baal typically is pictured with a mallet, a pointed conal head in the Canaanite style, and with a mallet extended, and then in his other hand, either folded across his chest or with lightning bolts. And many times he is wearing these funny little shoes that make him look elevated. And we may find that comical, but as we move into the second section, I think you'll see that a lot of that has come into our society today. So this area was, they have found animal remains from sacrifices, and as I mentioned, they have found adult human teeth all the way around the wall. Many, many, many of these teeth they have found. And then again, the pelvis of the small girl. The other area, which is in the northern part of the island, is called the Tophet. We're going to look at that next. And so this area here we see more in keeping with the worship of the stars. Remember, the Phoenicians, the Canaanites, are sailors. They're going to watch the stars, navigation, calm seas are the things that they are really concerned with. And we'll see to what extent that they will go to ensure that they feel that they are worshiping their gods in the proper way. So please stay tuned for part 2.